Usually when we get done with harvest, we're being pushed by really cold weather coming, a bunch of wind, rain, or something that once we get done, we got to scramble around and get a bunch of things done before that weather sets in. Otherwise, it's just plain miserable out there. But this year, we have like a 70-degree, 10-day forecast ahead of us. We actually took yesterday off, got a little bit of an extra sleeping in. Was able to go out to eat. It was really nice. So now what? What do we do now that harvest is done? Now, as much as I'd like to say, we're headed down to Florida for the winter. Now is the time for us to be getting out in the fields and doing all the things we wanted to fix in our fields for the entire year. So we need to be addressing soil fertility, soil pH, our calcium levels. We have waterways that need fixed. We have field edges that need fixed. We have fences that need pulled. We have little trees, kind of like that one, that need to be taken out. We have tiling that needs to be done, and we have a few tile blowouts that need to be fixed. Now, all that stuff, it takes time, and frost is coming. We also got to get stuff picked up around the farm. Pretty much all of our fields have fences that are just like this. We don't have animals out in any of them anymore. So, I mean, these fences just falling apart. They're just, you know, nothing to them here. If you know anything about me, barbed wire is my absolute least favorite object. It just catches on everything. We have probably 20 miles or so of fence like this that needs to be pulled. We want to get this pulled because if you look at this fence line, see how there's this like little lip kind of thing right here? Years ago, when they ran all their discs and mold bore plows and everything, they started at one end of the field and worked their way to the other. So it's made this elevation change. I kind of want that elevation change to be gone, because when you're coming through here at the corn head, you'll actually catch this higher ridge, because the rest of your corn head's down there, and then you rip your snoots off in this. An in snoot for a corn head is like $650, and if you can prevent yourself from smashing 3 of them a season, well, that's money. It'd be nice to keep in the pocket. All these little weeds and everything, like these guys here, just a gajillion weed seeds grow in these fence lines. So then wind, birds, everything takes them out into your field. So then the edges of your field get all hairy, which impacts our yields. And also, birds land on top of these fences, and birds eat seeds. Then they plant these guys, trees. Now this seems like a little tree right now. But you leave that guy for like 3 years, then he turns into this guy. And then after 3 years, then he literally like triples in height. Unless the neighbor beside us has a reason to have a fence in the field, like they put cows or something out there, then there's no reason why any fields of ours should have a fence. What I want to do, I want to pull all the wooden poles. So all the ones that are made out of wood we'll take out. And then like every 20 poles, we'll leave one of the metal ones. So that way it'll stay there. And then we'll at least be able to continue to see the border of our field. We just won't have pull in between. It'll be like 1, skip 19, 1, skip 19, 1. This fence removal is going to do a few main things. So we already talked about the corn snoots, but also we can save our preset lines for our auto steer in the field. I just want to set our line like 6 feet off this, so then when you pull into a field at night, whenever, you can just press the button. You don't got to worry about hitting something on the edge, because you're going to have plenty of distance around. Just a nice, clean, smooth edge. But also, we're going to leave the grass from there to there, so it'll be a nice little path. You'll be able to fit a 4-wheeler down it perfect, or the lawnmower, or the brush hog. We'll be able to go through once, twice a year, be able to mow it, so if any little new trees are growing or anything, be able to get those zapped right away. We'll also be able to come through with the 4-wheeler, and we can spray 2,4-D on all the broadleaf, so then it'll only be grass growing between, so we'll just have a nice little grass barrier between the fields. But now also, we have a path where we can drive our 4-wheelers completely around the fields, so if we want to scout a specific area through the growing season, or we want to do maybe multiple sites for some tissue testing or something, it just makes the accessibility to our fields so much easier when we can drive all the way around them. Because let's say I wanted to go over by that wind turbine, but I can't get over there, and maybe I have to go to the waterway on the other end of the field and walk all the way down the road. It's small stuff, but maybe instead of having the time to have 4 tissue testing zones, now we can do 8, just because we can get to them so much faster. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if we can go from 4 to 8 over the course of, let's say, 10 years, you know, that's significantly more tests that we can do over that period of time, just by having an access way. It also makes the fields look so much nicer, because you don't have all this stuff growing on the edge. It's kind of like having a well-manicured yard. It just looks nice. Hey, look at that. There's a spot with no fence, or the fence is knocked down on the ground, waiting to be hit by some piece of equipment that doesn't know it's there. But anyway, it'll basically kind of look just like this spot. Dad and Cooper pretty much spent all day yesterday picking up under the dryer. There's no pile under there anymore. 8 skid loader buckets, by the way. That's all cleaned out. Hopper bottom bin is all cleaned out. They've finished running that through the dryer. So filled up the big bins. These are all cleaned out. I think we still need to clean out the boots on the bottom of the legs. We need to clean out the bottom of the pit yet. It's really important that we keep the bottom of these boots cleaned out because there's about 5 bushels of corn in there. And if you leave this sitting here for a long enough time, you get rain, snow. Sometimes your entire leg can be frozen, stuck solid because it gets stuck in that frozen corn. And also that when this gets wet, it'll start to rot inside of there and actually rust from the inside out on this. And you don't want the bottom of your legs getting all rusty and collapsing because that holds up the entire leg. Oh, morning, Dad.
Morning. Just looking at this great job of all the water that runs down in there for us.
Oh, yeah, geez. I'd say that wasn't the right cocking because it like pulled away.
Yeah, part of it is when this settled from the weight, it...
Oh, you're right.
Very good deal.
Why did they do that? That's about touching that pulley. Yeah. Oh, hey, you got some scarecrows.
Yeah, a little owl. They got it so they kind of rock. They won't fall over, I guess.
Oh.
Now, the conveyor coming from them bins, how big will that be?
It'll be the same as what you're looking at right here.
What's that, 5,000 or 4 or something?
It's supposed to be 8,000 bushel an hour. But the problem is, this one's set up for 6,000 right now because this leg is 6,000 bushel an hour.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be...
I think we can turn this up to an 8,000 bushel an hour because it's the same dimensions as the 8,000 bushel an hour one. I think it's just the drive at the top. They put it in a different gearbox so it goes faster.
You look at that belt on that goofy Mickey Mouse setup. The one belt's twisted. Means it's spun or...
Oh, what in the world is that?
Spider-Man. You need a... You know, that's like I was telling Zach that day. I said it'd be nice if there was a way...
Yeah. That belt is spinning. Spun. Yeah, what in the world is going on there?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be flat like these ones. It turned itself. And if you look up, it turns around as it hits that top pulley.
I'm still baffled why you'd go a 22-inch here down to 12-inch here. I
have a feeling that's where we run into the issue of where this burns itself off because that can't take it away fast enough. And so it backs it up.
And then if you look at how they got it enclosed on the side there, it's always working against itself.
Yeah, and it's not a straight down drop, and the grain brings it up to here, so it hits that, and then it's got to fall back, so it kind of back constricts. This is as many times as we burnt those belts off. I mean, the wettest corn we've had through this was 18.5%.
Yeah, if you're getting 20, it's like...
25.
Yeah, 25 would
And
be.
I mean, this isn't even pushing at the max capacity either. That's at 6,000 bushel an hour when we burned that many sets of belts off. Sorry, 6,200 bushel an hour. 75% of our corn was able to come out of the fields at that 15% to 17.5 or so, which is dry enough that we do not have to run it through the dryer. We can blow air on it in the bins. So we're also going to be running these bin fans, these bins, so that way we can make sure this is, how do I open this door? There we go. That way we can make sure this corn stays nice and dry. Now this bin has a SureTrack monitor system on it, so see those cables that go down into the corn? There's 7 of them all throughout the bin. They go all the way to the floor. And we're about to ring from the top. Maybe a little more. And that bin's about the same, right?
Yeah, probably a little fuller than this one.
Okay, well, I'd say that's pretty good. A lot of bushels.
It is a lot of bushels.
But those sensors that hang down, they have moisture sensors on them and temperature sensors. So it connects to my SureTrack app on my phone, so I can actually get a picture of what the conditions of the inside of the grain bin are like as far as temperature and moisture grows, and then I can also track the change. So if we get a hot spot going, my phone will alert me if a hot spot starts to form, and I can also watch it spread on the app. It's really cool. But for some reason, we don't have electricity to it on this bin right now, so we need to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, we should check that or have Wade, because that would be really nice to get going.
This is our only bin that has it. We're kind of testing it out. We'll eventually add it to our other bins. I'd really like it because you can set parameters based off the weather station that's on top of the bin, that's hiding right there. If we want our corn to be, let's say 15%, I can put that in on the app and it'll automatically turn the bin fans on when the weather conditions according to the weather station are favorable for getting that corn to 15%. So if it's too humid outside, too cold, too wet, too whatever, they won't kick on. So it's really cool. And it will kick on when those things are favorable. For corn, it's really nice to just be able to monitor, but I think it'd be really beneficial for beans. So like in that bean bin over there, then if you combine beans that are too dry on a really moist day, the fans could kick on to rehydrate the beans and you add a little bit of weight back to them. Easy does it there.
We got to dig a grave tomorrow too. Is tomorrow Wednesday?
No, tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah, that one's about the same. Very similar. Okay. Maybe even a little less than the other one. It's funny. This bin here.
Yeah.
This was with the case combine filled on top. See the trash difference?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can tell. Even when you're bringing them in.
Oh boy.
It's a pull.
We do all of our grain marketing on the Board of Trade, so we don't do any direct cash deals to the co-op or anything unless like this year we had some extra beans that we couldn't store. We just sold those direct cash out of the field. But as for everything else, we have options on the Board of Trade. So we buy puts and calls. That basically means we have the right, but not the obligation to buy or sell at a set price, basically a floor or a ceiling price. And then we can adjust our floor or ceiling price by rolling it up or down depending on what the market's doing. And then we either get paid or have to pay in order to get into those new positions. But that's what we do for all of our marketing. So we have nothing going out in November. We have nothing going out in December as of right now. I'm kind of thinking we're going to start in January, but we might sneak some in. It depends what the market does. If it goes crazy in December, we might do some hauling in December, but usually December is a big meeting month where seed guys come out, fertilizer, chemicals, insurance, bankers, Christmas, family get-togethers, overbearing mother-in-law kind of stuff. And even if we wanted to haul right now, we really can't because we don't have our drag conveyors in yet. I mean, technically we could stick an auger under there and do what we did last year. 2 years ago, we limed 500 acres to correct our soil pHs on them. Soil samplers are running around as we speak, re-soil sampling those 500 acres that we limed so we can see what our new levels are. And then our other 1,500 acres, we are having limed this year. So then 2 years from now, we'll be able to have them soil sampled. And then we can really start honing in on our soil fertility because if our pH isn't in check, it's no point doing anything else yet. In my opinion, pH is the #1 place to start. It's the cheapest fertility as well. Remember in chemistry how we have different elements, and with those elements they have different amounts of electrons that go out on the side, and different elements pair with different elements in different ways. Some have a really violent reaction and some don't pair with each other no matter how much you tried, and that's those electrons that go outside of them and how much pull they have towards other elements. Well, guess what soil is made out of? It's got a whole bunch of different elements. That's actually the nutrients that are inside of it. So we basically have all of those elements kind of pair bonding with each other inside of this. So when our soil has a certain acidity to it, they pair differently than when it has different acidities. So if we're too low, they all tighten up to each other and they're not available. They're not free floating around for the plant to be able to pick up. But when your soil pH is correct, then there is a whole bunch available. We want to do the fences in all of our farms. It's going to happen. But we have two specific farms we really want to focus on the waterways in. This is Uncle Orland's. See how this waterway has this little ravine right here, right on the side of it? What happened is waterway got higher than the field. So instead of the water coming down and going into that grass and then running down the low spot or the draw of the hill and getting taken away where the grass, the little tiny fibrous roots would hold that soil in place, it just runs right down the side because the water can't get in it, and then it soil erodes away, and then you get these little washouts. Now this one's not that bad. I mean, it's not nice, but it's not terrible. See how this is mowed? It looks pretty good. Over there, that's not mowed at all. See how there's a little washing out action going on there? Well, there's an even bigger one hiding down there in the grass. And there's even bigger ones hiding out in the middle. There's blowout holes that are full of water that are big enough. If you're walking along, will literally swallow an entire man. Oh boy. Then see how there's nothing growing right here? And there's kind of a line in the field. If it wasn't exceptionally dry out right now, we'd be standing in like 6 inches of water through here. There's also a little river that runs down the other side of this little grass waterway. This farm needs some tiling done to it to get rid of this water situation. There's also a couple weep spots on these side hills. There's a few up there. There's a couple over there. And once it's tiled, it needs the waterways reshaped. We actually need to reshape some waterways before we can do some tiling because some of this is so rough up inside there. Dave tried going in looking for tile with his backhoe, and it was so bad he could not get his backhoe in there. Then at some point, I'm hoping we can get the scrap guys out. They were supposed to do it last year, and then it was supposed to be this spring. We haven't heard from them, so I'm hoping we can get them out here so we can get the scrap on this farm picked up. Then Ron can come in, tear all these trees down, tear the old building sites down, then we can farm through there. At the moment, this is its own field. Up where the car is by the road, that is its own field. That little rock island over there is its own field. That's the big part of the field, which is its own field. And then this is its own field. This is a 107-acre farm with 5 individual fields inside of it. So you're opening up 5 individual fields, and you have to snake around all these waterways. Where once this is all done, we should be able to start at that back fence and just go north and south, back and forth, all the way across. Just plant right through these waterways, all the way through here, up to the road. With this field being kind of chopped up like this, we can do a 160-acre square farm faster than we can do this 107-acre piece that's all broken up. We should be able to plant it in like 3.5 hours if it was all straight going, or we could go through the waterways. But the way it is, it takes us pretty much a good chunk of the day planting. You should be able to do 30 acres an hour, but you get like 18 here just because of all the turnarounds. And the other farm we really want to focus on is the Hanson farm. This is the one where I've been burning all these tree piles in. We have a little bit of a drive to show what's all going on here. We're gonna head up over the hill. This farm goes an entire mile, so we'll go gravel road to gravel road just by going straight right now. But the thing about this farm is there's 3 waterways that block between the gravel road to the other gravel road. And all those waterways are basically identical to the ones at Uncle Orland's. They're impassable. They're not wet, they just have a big old ravine right through them, so you can't drive equipment through them. So essentially this 80-acre farm turns into 3 different fields, and each one progressively gets further from the road. So we're coming up on number 1. This one's not as bad, but that low spot right there where the tall grass is, you cannot plant through that. That's about 3 feet deep, so you have to go around it. Kind of annoying. The other one is just up over this hill. Looks like I still got a couple little piles that need to be kind of burnt up here a little bit more. I'd like Ron to come in with his bulldozer and reshape the edge of this field. The trees used to grow about 60 feet in from this edge fence, and so we're just kind of now, it's a little bit of a process getting that back into crop production ground. Now we're coming up on the second waterway here. It's just over this next little bit. This one's a little bit bigger, and same thing. You cannot drive through it, which really eats into the production of this farm, or the efficiency, I should say, of this farm. A big old rut right through the center of that. Like driving through with a 4-wheel-drive tractor, not an enjoyable experience. And then the last one is right there at the bottom of the hill. So if the camera will focus right there. So we should just be able to start at this fence, just plant from that road all the way through a mile, turn around, go a whole mile. You can do that for the whole thing. So that's the Bush farm over there across the creek. And then that's Dad's house. So the field around Dad's house over there. But this one, this 80 acres, should take like no time to get done at all. Just get your outline done, then go back and forth. So getting these waterways fixed is gonna make this farm highly efficient. We actually did do a little bit of tile fixing down on this one. There is a spot like right here on this little side hill. This is also where some rocks are kind of in this field. But we need to tile this. There's kind of a big wet spot through here. And there's a couple little baby ravines kind of starting that we can get smoothed out while Ron's here. And this farm will be really nice. While Ron is over here, while not as important as this farm for getting smoothed out, over on the Bush farm and that little ravine right there, that's also starting to get a little bit of a pretty good washout going through, where your tractor, combine, planter really kind of get a nice jolt when they drive through it. We'd like to get that one smoothed out. And there's actually just a couple little spots like that. Like there's another one kind of right in there on the Bush farm as well. But then in the back of the Bush farm over there, there's a little, that's a 30-acre little square just over the hill. You can't see it, but there's a waterway, and that's impassable. And then around Dad's house. That waterway, which is right off the main driveway when you're coming into the house. That one, same thing, low on the sides, so there's big old ravines through that. That'd be nice to get that one smoothed out. And then the field west of Dad's, right over there where the big hill is, a whole bunch of trees grew over there for a long time. So Ron needs to get in there with this bulldozer, kind of get all those big old craters fixed. But then that waterway that goes down on the hill, that, I put my finger in the frame, it takes it out. But that one, and then the one on the very bottom of the hill there, those are also impassable. So if he has time, it would be nice to get that. There's probably like 8 acres of waterway over there. That's a really big waterway. But then on the front of the field, we got those terraces. And then you can see it right there. There's a washout there. And then there's actually one right there. There's 2 of them there. So if he could get those smoothed out, those don't need to be grass. Those back ones will stay grass, but they just need to be smoothed out. So then Cooper can get in there and he can do hay production off those. And then these other ones too, we're gonna do just a little border strip right along the edge of the field, like 20 feet wide. Like there already is kind of one there, but just make it a little wider in a couple spots. So then Cooper can mow right along the edge of the Hanson farm here, and then he can get to all those waterways in the back of the field. I got a little curious this last year while I was sitting in my office, and then I started Google mapping and measuring all of our field waterways, or waterways that we do not use right now because they are impassable, so we don't get any hay production ground off them. We farm 2,000 acres. If we took all of the waterways that we cannot use right now, we can use 35 acres of them as we speak. But if we used all of the ones we have that you just can't drive through, Cooper would have like 95 acres worth of hay production ground that he could go off just off our waterways. That's crazy. Well, it's nice. That's what we're gonna be working on, getting those fields ready. The fields are our bread and butter, and we want to make our farm as efficient as possible. Everyone's always trying to get more and more acres. Well, yes, I think that's a very viable way to grow. I also think we can be doing more with what we currently have, and we have a lot of efficiencies around our farm that in my opinion are holding us back from being able to do more. If we're messing around with a bunch of small stuff on 2,000 acres, that takes us the same amount of time that we could be doing, let's say 3,000 acres if we were just efficient with what we were doing, or more efficient with what we were doing. So let's get our 2,000 acres in line so we can start building these practices, so then down the road, then scalability and expansion are all extremely possible, and we already have all those skills, knowledges, and experience already in place, so that way if more opportunities do come, then we're able to capitalize on them even more. If it's cold, wet, windy, rainy, snowy, we can work inside buildings. We still need to get the inside of that building tinned, so that way it can turn into a full, nice heated shop, and also the house.